All right, let's get started. Thank you everyone for coming, and if you're watching, let us know where you're tuning in from. We're talking about Pinterest SEO, and we're answering all of your questions about it. I got a list of questions prepared, and some of you all have messaged me ahead of time with your questions. So I'm going to ask Julia and Rebecca all about Pinterest SEO. So to start off, let's do some introductions. Let's start with Julia. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got into Pinterest?
Yeah, I'm Julia. I'm an SEO and Pinterest consultant. I run my business, Julia Renee Consulting. So I got started with Pinterest and with SEO actually with my travel blog probably about 5 years ago. So I just taught myself strategies to really increase the traffic for my travel blog. And then when I started freelancing, I was doing all kinds of social media and content writing and stuff like that. And learned that I hate social media, but I like search engines. So then I just focused solely on SEO and Pinterest.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of social media either. And Pinterest is kind of it's kind of a hybrid between a search engine and a social media platform, which we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. Oh, you, Rebecca, tell me more about you. You're on mute. Wait, I think you're on mute, Rebecca. We can't hear you.
1 second. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm a SEO and Pinterest specialist. I have been working in SEO for about 2 years. I was doing client work for a period of time. This is with Google SEO and Pinterest marketing. And now I just have a limited amount of clients because I'm really focused on my own project, my own blog that I have been growing and that recently reached over 100,000 monthly viewers. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, just putting a little bit more time and effort into watching that grow with Pinterest marketing as well as SEO.
Nice. Cool. Ikram is tuning in. Hi, Ikram. Thanks for joining. If you got any questions about Pinterest, let us know. Okay, so we're going to be talking about how businesses, because that's predominantly who's watching, they're small businesses. A lot of our clients are service-based businesses. So how can service-based businesses predominantly use Pinterest for their business? And we can also talk about blogs and products. So my first question for you, I'll start with you, Julia, is do you think Pinterest works for a specific type of business or specific type of clientele?
Yeah, so I definitely think you have to do some research on Pinterest to see if your clients are there or if people are even talking about your content on Pinterest. Just yesterday, someone said they are in physiotherapy, which I don't really know anything about. And they're like, yeah, isn't Pinterest just for products? So I did a quick search of physiotherapy on Pinterest and it has tons and tons of content. So you kind of just have to search to see if, your industry or anything is on Pinterest. But the number one thing that you have to do if you want to be active on Pinterest is have some sort of content to post. So a lot of times that's blogs, but it can also be like YouTube videos and podcast episodes and things like that. But you can't just kind of like repin your homepage over and over again. You do need to have some kind of content. So a lot of people get really discouraged when they hear that because they don't want to be like writing blogs or doing videos. But that really is kind of like the core of, how you're able to use Pinterest for service-based businesses.
Mm-hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong. So Pinterest typically has a demographic, the demographic on Pinterest are predominantly women, right? Do you find that if your clientele are not women, then it doesn't work?
I think you kind of have to see, what people are searching for. I know someone in men's fashion who does really well on Pinterest. So something like that can do well. I know a male interior designer who also has like a large male following on Pinterest because he creates more like, masculine designs and works with more like bachelors and things like that. So men are definitely on Pinterest. You kind of just have to do a little research to see if they would be interested in the type of content that you have for whatever your business is.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, you have a blog and some digital products, right?
Yes, so I have a blog in minimalism and I sell some digital products through that.
Do you find that you get sales from your website, from Pinterest?
Yeah, so you can definitely use Pinterest to convert sales. Basically, I mean, Pinterest is mainly a search engine. So you want to basically get people to click on those pins to go to your content or to go to your landing page where you are selling these digital products. So it's definitely a lead generator in that way.
And have you found that there are certain businesses or certain industries that do better, or topics that do better on Pinterest than others? Like, is there a such thing as a type of business that should not be on Pinterest?
I mean, I definitely agree with Julia that you have to do your research. You know, you have to really get on the platform, search around, and look to see if there is similar content to yours out there. I do think that there are some niches that do a lot better than others, and maybe it just might take more time for your service-based business to really take off, for example. But it's really kind of learning the Pinterest algorithm, which is actually constantly changing, and really kind of just keeping up with that. And once I think you're able to manage that and find success in that, that you do have the potential to do well. But I think that some niches do better than others.
Okay. And it's just a matter of doing the research to figure out if that niche is yours.
Exactly.
What is so in a general website SEO, we can say we say that it takes about anywhere between 3 to 12 months to start seeing the results of your work. Is the timeline similar in Pinterest? Is it shorter, longer?
Yeah, so Google SEO and Pinterest SEO is quite different. I do find that Pinterest SEO is a lot easier than Google SEO. So I think once you can manage Google SEO on other platforms, they just seem easier, right? So I think that with Pinterest, you definitely have the opportunity to see growth faster, but it is a little bit of a long-term game as well, you know? So to see steady growth, compound effect, it's going to take some time, but Google SEO definitely takes longer.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. Do you have anything to add to that, Julia?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say it usually probably takes at least 3 months to really start gaining like good traction. And I know the average growth is like 1 to 5% every month. But one cool thing with Pinterest that like is different from Google is if other people are sharing your pins, that is going to help like, boost your pins rankings. So that can be a faster way to grow than like, you can't really share things on Google, especially now that Google Plus is dead. But that can help kind of speed things up a little bit.
Let's talk a little bit more about the algorithm. So when it comes to general website SEO, we can try to break it down to pillars, like technical SEO is one, backlinks is another, content or on-page SEO is another, local SEO, if you've got a Google My Business profile, and user experience is now becoming another pillar. Maybe Julia, I'll leave this one for you. Is there something like that for Pinterest? With the Pinterest algorithm, can we break it down to pillars or groups to understand what Pinterest likes?
Not so much with like, technical and things like that. It's kind of, like Rebecca said, the algorithm keeps changing and they keep adding things. So it's kind of keeping up with the changes and like trying out what they're testing. So like they're just now coming out with something that's similar to Instagram stories. So some people have had really good success with that and others not so much. But it's kind of like testing out the stories, testing out the, their videos. They had hashtags for a while. That's kind of dead now. So it's kind of trying to keep up with the different algorithm changes rather than like kind of focusing on different aspects of it.
Well, Rebecca, have you seen any sort of trends and anything that the algorithm likes?
Yeah, so in recent, I would probably say in the last few months, Pinterest is paying more attention to video pins as well as story pins. So that's the stories that Julia was talking about. And as well as fresh content. So on the Pinterest platform, Pinterest is really pushing for fresh content. So what happened in the past is that pinners were complaining that they would see the same content over and over again, the same pin over and over again. And so Pinterest changed the algorithm to really put more value on fresh pins. So it is more work for content creators because we have to keep creating these fresh pins, but you are able to create, for example, different pins for one piece of content, right? But you want to spread it out a little bit. You don't want the same content or a pin going to that same link over and over again. You do want to spread it out a bit, but the good thing is that you can change the photo in the background, maybe the heading that you put on the pin, and those are definitely going to count as fresh content, not, you know, the same pin over and over again.
Okay, so you can create one blog post but have multiple pins for it, and that would be considered fresh content.
Yes, and the only thing I would recommend is definitely spreading that out.
So I imagine like visually that could bog down a blog post. So if I have one blog post and three, because the pins are like pretty big, right? They're like these chunky vertical photos. Would that bog it down visually speaking? Is there a way to, like, can you, I don't want to say like hide, because that would be cloaking, right? That's not an ethical SEO practice. But could you have like one pin on the blog and then manually upload it? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so you can put like a pin on, you know, your blog post. I definitely recommend doing that. But then you can just create pins on the platform itself that you don't necessarily have to put in your blog post. You can just put one pin in your blog post and that's fine. But you can create different pins that are just on the Pinterest platform.
Julia, for those that are not very familiar with Pinterest, can you kind of explain to us how someone would get started with Pinterest SEO? So you create a Pinterest account, you install something called Rich Pins, right? And then what?
Yeah. So yeah, make sure you have a business account so you have full access to the analytics and everything. And then in terms of like SEO, definitely make sure that you are, you know, using descriptive keywords in your profile and biography and stuff like that. Also creating boards that are related to your niche, and also using strong keywords for the board names and the board descriptions. People definitely neglect this a lot, but boards as well as like profiles and pins can rank really well in Google. I actually just came out with a blog post last week on Pinterest SEO because I was doing a Google search for like some recipes just for myself, and two boards were like in spots, I think 3 and 4 on the first page of Google. So you can rank really well in Pinterest, but also in Google. So definitely getting everything set up with, you know, with keywords and things like that. Keep everything on brand and, you know, within your industry, so you're not like confusing Pinterest and, you know, Google what your account is about. And then get started on creating those pins. And then, yeah, you kind of have to be pinning consistently every day. So I would make sure you have some designs ready to go before you actually start pinning. So that way, you know, you don't pin all your 10 designs in one day and then have nothing else for the rest of the week. So kind of like get that prepared before you know, start pinning a lot.
So from what we've talked about so far, it sounds like fresh content is important. Having pins and boards that use the keywords that are relevant to your industry and the content, and then, you know, keeping up to date with new features like the videos and the stories. Anything else that is important to do for Pinterest SEO?
I think that's about all of it.
So you mentioned shares. So that kind of sounds like the same idea as backlinks. So the way people interact with your content seems to be important. I think it was, I can't remember who mentioned it. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, the number of people who are like repinning your pin, that's kind of, you know, what it is sharing on Pinterest. So I mean, the more repins that you get and the more engagement and link clicks and everything, that kind of, you know, shows Pinterest that people are really interested in this pin and your topic. So that can help you, you know, climb in the rankings on Pinterest. And then, you know, the closer you are to the top of whatever the search term is related to that pin, the more engagement you're going to get. So it's kind of similar to, you know, Google with how things will rank, but that is one way to kind of, that's different from Google, that can help you kind of get more traffic and climb the rankings.
So what about group boards? Is that the right terminology? Do you recommend, I'll leave this to you, Rebecca. tell us about group boards. How do they work? How do you recommend them?
So group boards is a little bit of a thing of the past, that I think that I used to have a lot more engagement in the past, but recently because of the algorithm changes with Pinterest, they're not placing so much value on group boards. So it's actually, I wouldn't really recommend focusing too much of your time on group boards. If you have, one or two group boards that you're a part of, that's totally fine. But I just wouldn't focus all your time and energy, joining these different group boards in your niche or anything like that, because to be honest, it's not as important as it used to be.
Okay, I did not know that. That's good to know. I did a Pinterest course, I think last year, and yeah, then the person that created the course at the time said that you should be part of groups, and that's really important. And created this whole strategy to like reach out to them. Like, oh my gosh, one more thing.
Like reaching out for backlinks, right? But no, I mean, maybe when she created the course, that was important, So I'm not saying that she's wrong, but I think that, of course, like Julia and me mentioned, it's always changing, Pinterest, and it's really something you have to really be consistent with keeping up with those changes. And in recent months, it's been pretty much well known that group boards is not as important as they used to be, because people, I think, have taken a lot of advantage of them. And then, Pinterest decided to maybe change their algorithm as far as that goes.
So you've talked a lot about, both of you have talked a lot about how quickly the algorithm is changing and how important it is to stay up to date. How do the two of you stay up to date? Is there like Google has this blog called Webmaster. Is there something like that? Who do you go to? What resource do you go to keep up to date on all these changes?
So Google has, I think, like their guidelines that you can follow. They, of course, they don't give out all their information, but they do, kind of put out some guidelines to follow. I also follow Simple Pin Media podcast, and she also has a group. And in there's a lot of content creators and pinners and Pinterest creators, basically. And really kind of following what they say as well is important, because she does keep up to date on the Simple Pin Media podcast. She does keep up to date with a lot of the changes and everything. So it's really kind of like when you're in the Pinterest community, you kind of know and speak with like the different creators and kind of see what people are posting, and by following that, basically.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of it is like watching other people and seeing how they're experimenting. A lot of it is trial and error, and yeah, it's important to stay to keep in touch with people. Julia, do you have any resources that you like to go to learn and stay up to date?
Yeah, Simple Pin's definitely my favorite. Yeah, she has she's like a paid group and then like a free group as well. So there are different levels if anyone wants to join. Definitely listen to her podcast. Yeah, I think just experimenting, and then these groups are really helpful because like I actually haven't done a story pin yet, because I'm usually like hesitant to try these new things just to see how things go, especially with things like story pins. People were upset because you can't add a link to it. So you're not able to get the traffic directly from the story pin like you would a regular pin. So people are kind of playing around to see what works with like driving people from their story pin, like maybe to their profile to get a follow, or, whatever it is. So those groups are really helpful for kind of seeing not only what the algorithm changes are, but how you can use them to your advantage.
Let's talk a little bit more about tools. So what tools do you like to use? We talked about keywords. Is there like a such thing as a keyword research tool for Pinterest? Analytics? Where do you, within the platform and outside, what tools do you like to use?
They have Pinterest Trends, which is supposed to be their keyword research tool. Right now, it's only available in the US, Canada, and I think the UK, because it's pretty new. I'm not the biggest fan because they don't have a lot of data.
Dude, I get the emails, and I when they first came out, I was like, oh, this is neat. Especially when COVID came out, the topics were super interesting to see what people were researching on Pinterest. But yeah, there aren't a lot of topics or data.
So if you search Pinterest tips, they don't have any data on that, which is kind of crazy. So it seems they have a lot of data for like things like in the food industry, but I haven't been able to use it much for like my business or service-based business clients so much. I can't use it like for myself for Pinterest tips. So I personally just kind of use Pinterest as a keyword research tool because they'll auto-populate with recommendations. But also since I'm, doing keyword research for my own content anyway, like with keyword research tools, I'll kind of just use that data as well.
Rebecca, do you have any tools that you like to go to?
I basically use within Pinterest, like the search bar, as Julia said, like looking at the keywords and what people are searching for through there. I also think it's good to go into so Pinterest ads, right? You want to like pretend that you're going to create an ad, and then you can see actually like kind of a bunch of keywords. If you type in, for example, for me, if I typed in minimalism, I could see the keywords and it shows you a range of how many people are searching for that keyword. So I'll go in like I'm pretending to create an ad, but not actually publish the ad, right? So I'll go in just to kind of see the keywords, how many people are searching for these keywords, and use that in my pin descriptions as well. And with my pin descriptions, I like to change it up a little bit. I think it's always good to do a little A/B testing and put, like different descriptions, even though the content is maybe about the same topic. Put definitely like different descriptions on 2 different pins, and just to see like exactly how well they do over time.
Nice. Have you noticed any sort of patterns that do better?
I haven't really noticed, I would say, any patterns. I would just suggest like definitely the descriptions to be at least like 5 to 7 sentences long, and just using keywords that are very, very similar to that piece of content that you are linking to.
Have you noticed things like all caps or using numbers or like certain adjectives get more clicks?
I mean, I always definitely think that you should have something at the end that makes people want to click it, right? But I don't think that, using all caps or something like that is that important.
Yeah, I've noticed that works really well on YouTube. People click.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the best practices on each platform, and it's interesting to see if it works on other platforms or not. But the like pretending you're creating an ad but not really trick is a good one. So Julia, what do you think are some, because you do general website SEO, what do you think are some key similarities or key differences between general website SEO and Pinterest SEO? Rebecca said that Pinterest SEO is a lot more simple. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, because they're, like you said, with all the pillars of SEO, with technical, user experience, all that, it's a lot more time consuming to do like website SEO versus Pinterest SEO. I mean, the mentality is still the same, I think. You have to know who you're speaking to, and use keywords and things like that they would be searching for. So that way you're not just getting a ton of empty traffic to your site. You're actually reaching people that you're able to convert with your content. So I think having the same mindset is helpful, but yeah, you do kind of have to focus on like, for a Pinterest example, you have to be pinning every single day. For Google, you don't need to be like blogging or updating your website every day. So
can you imagine?
Yeah, I know, my God. I would never rank on Google.
Rebecca, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I agree. Like, I think that basically you need, with Google SEO, it definitely takes longer, right? So you're going to see faster results with Pinterest if you do it right. But also with Google, it's a lot more time consuming. You really have to put in a lot of research when it comes to keywords for Google, right? And you have to study the content on the first page and these type of things, right? And of course, there's a technical side to it, the backlinking side to it. With Pinterest, you really just have to focus on your descriptions that you create, the boards that you create, the descriptions in the boards, just making sure that the descriptions and the board descriptions and everything that you're creating on the platform is valuable and it contains the keywords that you want to target.
I've noticed on with travel topics, and Julia, you mentioned foods, with some keywords, pins come up on Google. How are they able to do that? Is that automatic, or is that because they have like a schema or structured data on the website? Is that automatic, or is there like extra steps that you have to take to get that?
It's just automatic because it's just Google seeing the information. So yeah, I see it happen all the time. Like actually, I was working with our mutual friend Cassandra, and I was doing some keyword research for her, and for some of her blog posts. And one keyword that I was looking, I think there were 4 different pins ranking on the first page of Google. So yeah, it kind of just happens if what you're searching for matches what a pin has.
Is that because, well, travel makes sense because, I mean, travel is a huge topic on Pinterest. People want to see, attractions. But for other topics, could that be because there's not a lot of content already on Google? So for example, like something that people say is that if you're researching a keyword and Quora or Reddit comes up on the first page, it means that there's not a lot of good quality content about that topic. So that's why Google's pulling up those forums. Could that be the case with Pinterest?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be that there aren't that many things ranking on Google. It could also be that like a pin has really taken off and gotten a lot of like engagement on it. Mm-hmm. So if a particular pin maybe has kind of like Twitter links will or tweets, I should say, will rank on Google. Like if they've gotten thousands of retweets really quickly. So Google can kind of see things like that with like Twitter or Pinterest and see what's getting the most engagement.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, last question before we go to the audience questions. I want to ask a little bit about the pins themselves. So I'm sure you've done A/B testing. What are some of the ingredients to having a really good pin? So there are different styles, right? There are like the infographics and the charts, and then there are just the titles with a background. What have you seen in your experiences do the best, do super well on Pinterest?
So Pinterest is a visual platform. So you definitely want to go into it thinking very visually and thinking visually appealing. So for me, what I have seen done well is good descriptions with some power words, So for example, the ultimate guide to minimalism would be maybe a pin that I would create. So definitely using those words that really capture the audience and really help them to engage with the pin to make them want to click on it. Because when you type in a search term, for example, there's going to be plenty of pins that come up. And the user is going to pick the one that they probably find either the most engaging or the one that speaks to them personally. So I also think that, like a good photos in the background are good as well, with a good description on top of it.
Mm. What about you, Julia? Do you got any insider tips?
Yeah, I mean, just make it very clear and catchy, and don't make it too long. I see a lot of times that, if their blog title is pretty long, instead of like, using the entire blog title, you can shorten it down to, the ultimate guide to minimalism and then drop the tagline. Mm-hmm. Just something that will really stand out, especially now that more people are using their phones. You want to make sure that it's really clear and easy to read on a smaller screen. So don't use like crazy script fonts because those are really hard. I would also say for products, make sure, you can create these graphics like you see, service-based businesses using, but also pin your actual products, like images of it being used or, a flat lay or something like that. One thing that is really beneficial for products is not including people's faces, unless it's like something for makeup, but people just like to see the product itself. So I was recently working with a company that makes dresses, so just having pictures of like, someone's neck down, just so people can see the product, on a body, not just, on the hanger or something like that. But it's not the same with Instagram where people want to see faces. On Pinterest, they really just care about seeing like the product and how it's used. So for product-based businesses, kind of play around with, you can create graphics for like, if you have different categories for your products, or if you create blog posts, but then also just pinning the actual images and make sure they're vertical.
So it's a little bit more of an impersonal platform.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's see what some people have asked. Ikram says, how can you convince your clients to start using Pinterest for their business?
Show them stats. Like almost 90% of 90% of people using Pinterest have bought something on Pinterest. So people like to spend money there.
So show them stats, maybe create a case study that you've done with previous clients and show that. Rebecca, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think also just kind of letting them know that Pinterest is going to be a platform that's going to drive traffic to your website, you know? So if you want to grow your email list, if you have products that you want to sell, if you want to sell your services, for example, it's really about getting eyes on your website or on your content in general. Now, the difference between like Instagram and Pinterest in that way is that Instagram wants you to stay on that platform, right? So they want you to be on the platform. It's very about like your personal brand, your personal life, this type of thing. With Pinterest, you really have more opportunities for people to click through to your website. So if that's what a service-based entrepreneur is looking for, or someone selling products is looking for, Pinterest is definitely the go-to platform for that.
Interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about Pinterest ads? So do you have any experience running ads on Pinterest?
I have a little bit of experience with running Pinterest ads. So I would say that it definitely comes down to when you are creating an ad to choose the right keywords and really just kind of play around with it, do some A/B testing as well with Pinterest ads. I think that that's very important.
Have you found that if you do Pinterest ads, it kind of helps, or hold on, let me switch that. Having a really good, strong, organic Pinterest profile helps your ads, or vice versa?
I haven't seen that correlation personally because I only did a little bit of it like with Pinterest ads. I don't have too much experience. Maybe Julia has a little more with me when it comes to Pinterest ads. I usually, when I work with clients, I try to grow their accounts organically.
Yeah, definitely focus on organic, but ads can definitely help a lot. I will say you don't really need to have like a huge account or a lot of followers to do well on ads, but I would recommend starting with organic. So that way you can see what keywords and what pin designs really do well. If you kind of just go in blindly, you have no idea if, you know, a particular color scheme is going to perform well versus a different one. And then one cool thing about ads on Pinterest is they kind of fit in seamlessly with when someone's searching for something on Pinterest, so they can perform really well, rather than if you're just scrolling on Instagram and you see this random ad for something that you searched for like, you know, 2 weeks ago. And then if someone actually saves that promoted pin, then the ad will live on longer than, you know, what you're putting money behind. So like on Facebook or Instagram, if you stop putting money behind the ad, no one is ever going to see it unless you start it again. But if someone has actually saved that pin, then that pin is going to live on longer than when you put money behind it.
Out of curiosity, how, like, are they expensive? I know LinkedIn is a pretty expensive platform to run ads. What about Pinterest? What's like the range for the CPC?
Don't know off the top of my head. I know I've done ads for like $5 a day and have gotten like tons of traffic. So you can put a lot of money behind them if you want, or you can just start off small and kind of build from there. But I know LinkedIn is like really expensive, so it's definitely cheaper than that.
Yeah, well, yeah, with $5 a day, you could get quite a bit of traffic. That's impressive, especially for a small business.
Yeah, and I think the lowest that you can go is 10 cents per click. So I think that that's the lowest that they allow at the moment. It might change, you know, of course, in the future, but it's 10 cents per click. Or you can, you know, do the daily. So you're spending $5 a day, for example.
It seems like a very underrated platform, and it's just a matter of time for it to kind of blow up and people to like exploit it a little bit more. Okay, let me see if we have any more questions. Oh no, there was just that one question from Ikram. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to ask you about a success story, a story of maybe a time that you tried this one trick or you experimented with something, you did something cool and you got really incredible results from it.
So I would say that my biggest change or growth on the platform was kind of experiencing with my own blog and basically putting keywords on my board. So writing like a keyword rich description on my boards. I think that it definitely changed, like literally within a few days, I was getting a ton more traffic by doing that. So I think for sure learning Pinterest SEO, knowing how to create those descriptions for your boards and for your pins is so important. And for me has been my personal success story on Pinterest.
Just to give people an idea, what is like a lot of traffic on Pinterest? Like how much can you expect?
So I'll tell you my stats basically. So every month I get either between 50 and 80,000 monthly viewers from Pinterest. Now it all depends on your niche. It all depends on how much time you've been on the platform as well. You know, how well you're doing SEO and how well you're keeping up with the changes. So those are my personal stats, and they are growing little by little each month, about like I would say between 10 to 15% growth each month. And that's because as more time goes on, my account is longer and longer on the platform. But there are some people I know that get 300,000 monthly visitors to Pinterest, and then there's some that only get maybe less than 1,000. So it really is about the work that you put into the platform.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the quality, right? Like you can get 100,000. So just to clarify, so you said 50 to 80,000 views on Pinterest. That means like how many people, what does that mean?
So that's how many people are clicking back to my website. So the traffic I'm getting on my website from Pinterest is, depending on the season and everything like that, is between on average 50 to 80,000.
Right. So then I imagine there are a lot more people that are seeing those pins or following you or whatever the stats are on Pinterest.
Yes, exactly. So on Pinterest, there's like this thing called monthly viewers, and you can see how many people are viewing your pins. But I wouldn't say that that's really a stat that you should pay attention to, because for me, the most important is getting people to click back to my website. So that's really the one statistic that I personally pay attention to.
Of course. I hope you're like using affiliate links and taking advantage of all that traffic.
Yeah, so in the content, of course, like I have some affiliate links, some brands that I partner with and everything. And so, yeah, so it definitely, helps to bring in sales with affiliate marketing, also my digital products as well. So.
Yeah, milk it as much as you can, Rebecca.
And my email list, of course, actually, like it's really, really beneficial, Pinterest, for an email list. If you're trying to grow your email list, I definitely recommend, getting on Pinterest as soon as possible, because it's just organic leads coming back to your content and signing up for more information that they want from you.
Offer lead magnets with Pinterest, or do you create a pin for each lead magnet?
Yeah, I create pins for the lead magnets, and also just adding those lead magnets into your content as well, so people, when they visit your website, they're going to see those lead magnets and then sign up from there.
Cool. How about you, Julia? Do you have any cool success stories, big or small?
Yeah, I have two that I thought of. One will make you guys feel better if you're just getting started with Pinterest, but on my travel blog, before I really knew what I was doing, I created a pin, and it was really ugly, but it was like my top driver of traffic for like, I think 2 full years, and I still get traffic from it. So if you're scared about making pin designs, it's okay. As long as you have really good descriptions and keywords, and your pin is at least clear and easy to read, you can still get some really good traffic and then improve your designs with time. And then another one was actually the dress company I mentioned before that I was working with. When COVID hit the US, they were one of the first people that I saw that were making masks. So I started pinning them on Pinterest, and they were a brand new account to Pinterest. I think this was like the second month that I was working with them. So they were probably getting like an average of 10 clicks per day. And then the masks really took off, and they jumped to like 1,000 clicks one day, up from like 10. Wow. So you can like get some really fast traffic sometimes, especially if you're kind of ahead of the game. So they were definitely ahead of a lot of people in like making masks. Well, first of all, making masks, but also like promoting them and adding them to Pinterest. So if you can definitely get ahead of the game on that, that can help your traffic a lot and your sales.
It's very true, right? That's why it's so important to be active online, because you never know how trends are going to change and how it's going to be in your favor, right?
Mhm.
People that have been talking about or writing about working from home and remote work have been doing it for years, and they, probably saw stagnant traffic, and then as soon as COVID hit, it got a huge increase. So you never know, when the tables are going to turn and you're going to be able to get that surge in traffic. So that's why it's important to be active online and be in it for the long game, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge and your stories. I really appreciate it. And anyone that's watching the replay, feel free to leave your comments below. And Julie and Rebecca, if you like, you can check them later this week. Where can we find you online?
So you can find me on Pinterest, also on Instagram, and then my website's all the same, Julia Renee Consulting. So yeah, come follow me everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you. How about you, Rebecca?
You can find me on Pinterest as well, or you can find me at basicsbybecca.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a good, well, it's evening here. Rebecca, I think it's like night for you there.
Yeah, but it's Spain. We stay up late.
Well, good night, Rebecca, and good evening, Julia. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.